During the authentication and authorization infrastructure is a key service. So me to assure that the service and the resource are accessed by the user in a secure way, and also that at the same time the user personal data are stored in a safe manner. It was a challenge that any operational research infrastructure has to deal with is controlling the access to the services and the resources. So the identity on the users need to be verified, and once this is done with success, the proper rights have to be granted to the users to perform the operation they are supposed to do with the service. So all the procedure, policies, and technologies used to implement such basic activity are a part of the so-called authentication and authorization infrastructure. At a high level, federated identity architecture include an authenticating party, which act as the source of identity and account information for a user, often called identity provider, and a service provider that accepts accessions from the identity provider about a user that authenticated. So the user or the device authenticate with the IdP, and the IdP provides an attestation that is accepted by the service provider, and replace also the need for the service to independently authenticate the client. Of course, the service provider and IdP providers have to trust each other for this approach to work, and typically this trust is made explicit by signing policies and contracts that describe the requirement and the responsibility of the identity provider and the service provider. So when we have a collection of identity providers and SP providers and service providers that have agreed to work together and trust each other, then we have an identity federation. And as you have understood, the federation are a circle of trust, we call specifically because a circle of trust in which each organization agree to trust the identity management of the other members. The growth of identity federations at the national and international level has proved to be a successful model to efficiently increase scientific collaboration. One to mention here is the EduGain that interconnects identity federations around the world, simplifying access to content, services, resources for the global research and education community. Again, over the past few years, the ARC project has been working together with infrastructure, research community, AI architect, to get a better understanding of their experience and need regarding sharing and accessing resources within a research collaboration. The goal has been to collectively define a set of architecture building block and implementation patterns, namely the ARC blueprint architecture, that is an important step document for development of interoperable technical solution for international, intra and interdisciplinary research collaboration. The ARC blueprint architecture is built on top of EduGain and add functionality required to support common use cases within a research collaboration, such as access to resource based on community membership. The latest iteration of the Arc Blueprint architecture define 5 components. Layer user identity contains the services for the identification and authentication of users in existing the implementation in the research and education space. The second is the community attribute service layer, which group services related to managing and providing information, so the attribute in germs about users. And typically they provide additional information about the users, such as community group membership and roles, on top of the information that may be provided by the services from the user level, user identity layer. Then we have the access protocol translation layer, addresses the requirement for supporting multiple authentication technologies, and it includes different services. The most important, one of these, the most important is the service provider, identity provider proxy, which serves as a single integration point between the identity providers from the user identity layer and the service provider in the end service layer. Then we have the token translation services, which translate identity tokens between different technologies. The other component is the discovery service, which enable the selection of the user's authenticating identity provider. And then we have the user inform, which allows user to be informed regarding the processing of their personal data. The authorization layer instead control access to the end service layer, and this architecture, the blueprint architectures, allows the implementers to delegate many of the complexity authorization decision to central component. This can significantly reduce the complexity of managing authorization policies. And finally, we have the end service layer, contains the services user want to use. Access to these services is protected using different technology, but these services can range from simple web browser-based services such as wikis or portal for accessing computing and storage resources to non-web browser-based resources such as API, login shells, or workload management system itself. No, sorry, there is a block with my presentation. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Sorry. So this is the slide about the check-in. Check-in service is the authentication and authorization information platform for the EGI infrastructure that implemented the Arc Blueprint architecture. Check-in, as you can see, service. Sorry?
Valeria, we don't see your slides anymore.
Oh, why? I was sorry. There is share.
Okay,
sorry,
now
can you see now?
Yeah. Yep.
Thanks a lot, Nicholas. Okay, so the check-in service enable the integration of external identity providers from EduGain and individual organization with the EGI services through this check-in identity service provider proxy component. So in that way, the users are able to access the EGI services, web and non-web based, using existing credentials from their home organization. To this end, check-in has been published in EduGain as a service provider And through EduGain, so EGI operational tools and services that are connected to checkin can become available to more than 3,000 universities and institutes from the 60 EduGain Federation with little or no administrative involvement. This is very powerful and a very bigger benefit from the scientific collaboration. Compliance with the referred research and scholarship entity category and the certified framework, checkin service ensure sufficient attribute release as well as operational security, incident response, traceability, and complementary to this, users without an account on a federated identity provider are still able to use social media or other external authentication providers for accessing EGI services that are not require substantial level of assurance. About level of assurance and what this means, you need to wait some slide, please. The core of EGI the core of the EGI check-in service is the IdP SAP proxy component, which acts as a bridge between the EGI services and external authentication source and identity providers. And the coupling mechanism of the internal services and the external authentication source reduce the complexity of the service implementation as it is removes dependencies on the heterogeneity of multiple identity providers, federation, attribute authorities, and different authentication and authorization technologies. The complexity is handled centrally by the proxy. So the introduction of this proxy entity brings also other additional benefit. Specifically, services only need to establish trust with one entity, that is the IdP SAP proxy. And having one configured IdP also removes the requirements from the service provider to operate their own identity provider discovery services. Furthermore, all internal services will get consistent and harmonized user identifier and attributes, regardless of the home organization or the research community the authenticating users belong to. And so, in general, in synthesis, this separation simplify also the change management process as the internal services are independent of the IdP runs by the home organization and so on. So check-in enables also users to manage their account through the EGI account registry, which allows them to access EGI resource with their unique personal EGI ID. Using any of the login credentials they have linked to their account. So the EGI account registry is based on CoManage, which maintains information about the user identity, such as the name, email, affiliation, as well as group membership and roles within EGI. The virtual organization concept, which is the name, terms that we use to refer to a group of people that have a common interest requirement and need to collaborate and share the resources. For this group of virtual organization, we operating check-in service as a list of comprehensive connectors that can allow integrating this system as an external managed attribute authorities. So having the attribute aggregation performed centrally by check-in allows the implementation of central strategies for attribute mapping and also harmonization, so that the EGI services receive a uniform set of attributes following well-defined structure and semantics. So it is very easy for the service, from the point of view of the services, to treat this kind of attribute internally. At the same time, EGI services doesn't need to implement a complex technical solution for supporting multiple authentication and authorization platform. So, user community in this way have several options to integrate yourself with checkin in order to access the EGI resources. And let me show some of these most common use cases in order to understand how it acts in the reality. The first use case is the authentication, and so to have an AAI as a service. What this means? It means that in this case, checkin is an authentication proxy, as you know, and checkin allows user logins from institutional identity provider in EduGames and also social media for non-EGI services. So what we have is a minimal overhead for the service development, because the services can directly to be integrated in EGI checkin and can benefit from this audience of potential users coming from the federation and identity providers supported by checkin. The second use case is AAI integration. So in this use case is a community operating its own AAI connected to checkin like a simple identity provider. And this allows that the user can access to AGI services and services and resource. But the user can do this without changing their authentication workflow. So it is very powerful benefit from this point of view. Another use case is an external attribute provider. In this use cases, we have a community managing authorization information about the users and their members via their own group management service, which is connected to checkin as an external attribute authority. And in this way, checkin will handle the configuration of the IdP and the aggregation of the attribute from the service provider, while the virtual organization is managing independently the information about the user, so can be managed by the VO manager like usual. The last, another use case is the use case when we have group management as a service, and it appears when a community that do not operate their own group management service ask to checkin to provide these capabilities from its platform, and it is possible using the checkin capability. So the overhead of deploying dedicated group management services is skipped in this case, and the authorized, we can support authorized virtual administration that can manage the information about the users directly from checkin interface. And in this case, of course, this use case can be adapted also in the case of the community want to use not only EGI services, but also other EGI services, non-EGI services, but the community, for example. Another authorization, another use case that is often used within checkin is the use case relative different kind of credential that a user can have. So, for example, a user may need to use different type of credentials. So, for example, the X509 proxy certificate, because the services require this kind of credentials. So, suppose that a user need to access to a storage element that requires this kind of credential. So, it is necessary to translate this institutional credential into the format allowing the access to that particular services. And in order to provide such functionalities, EGI checkin services has been connected to the new RC Out online certification authority. The RC Out online certification authority issues certificate to an entity based on a successfully authentication to a federated identity management system operated by an eligible registration authority that is in general is operated by an academic or research organization. So when a certain web flow requires a X509 credential, the user will be redirected via a component called master portal to the online certification authority. There, the user will log in again transparently, thanks to the single sign-on, to the check-in service, and will have to give consent for the management of the user credential. Then it will then be redirected to the originating services, and in the process, new credential is cached in the master portal with, of course, subsequently subsequently will be retrieved by the service initiated this flow. That is typically is a science gateway. Finally, I will talk to you something about the authorization model that, as already described, the check-in service is able to aggregate user attribute from different attribute authorities. So in order to create composition of a user identity composition, that aggregation of this attribute, that these attributes are retrieved also from user home organization. This composite user identity is then made available to AGI services, enable them to make the appropriate authorization decisions. The attribute that can be used by the service provider to control access to resources convey two types of information about the authenticated users, namely entitlements and level of assurance. User entitlements indicates a set of rights to specific resources, can either refers explicitly to the protected resource or implicitly by conveying the user's view group membership and role information. Instead, the level of assurance is based on the authentication method selected by the user. EGI checkin assign a level of assurance that is an attribute which is conveyed to the service provider, and through the value of this attribute, the service can accept or non accept the access of the users. Within EGI, we have distinguished three levels of assurance, namely low, substantial, and high. And of course, it depends from the credential the users provided in order to request a service. So, for example, if the user coming from the social IdP, this automatically be assigned a level of assurance low for this kind of request, different from the X509, of course. Well, my last slide contains links to the new check-in documentation where you can find a lot of information on how to create an EGI user account, how to integrate a service provider within our infrastructure, how to integrate your identity provider, so your own operation, and how to get in support in terms of doing this for one of the activity that you want to start with the EGI check-in. Okay, this is now from my presentation, and now I will introduce my colleagues Nicholas Liempotis from GRNET, that of course a lot of you know very well, and because Nicholas now talk about the latest update and the roadmap of check-in for the next months and years.
Good morning, everyone. So let me turn my presentation to full screen mode. Okay, can you see my slides?
No, Nicholas, we can only see your video. And now we can see your slide.
But not in full screen,
but
right?
Not in full screen, sorry. Maybe you can...
Okay, since we're running late. So, first of all, from a logistics point of view, I have around 10 minutes or less, because we started with a slight delay.
Yeah, you have...
So
you can start now.
Okay. Okay, so first I would like to go through the most notable changes. As you can see here, there's a long list of changes, and this is not an exhaustive list. So first of all, we have streamlined the user onboarding process by improving the user interface during the sign-up process, which now takes less steps. We have also improved the identity linking process, which is now easier and faster. As part of it, the ability to link certificates issued by the RCOT CA has also been improved. The integration with ORCID now uses ORCID API client credentials. There is now support for service identities. There's a new statistics plugin that supports showing statistical information related to user login events, user groups connected to identity providers, service providers. There is a new version of the VOMS deprovisioning plugin that supports the latest version of the VOMS admin SOAP and REST API. The integration with GocDB has also been improved in the sense that now there is a possibility to configure fallback servers. So when the primary GocDB API server is not available, check-in automatically fallbacks to the backup ones. And if no GocDB API server is available, check-in can show the user a warning informing that there is no role information from the GocDB, and the user can either abort the authentication or proceed without, of course, the role attributes that would be made available by the GocDB. And another change, which is mostly under the hood, is that now check-in is hosted in a new data center, which has led to an improved performance. Now, for some of these changes, I would like to go into more details. So, for the registration, we now have a user registration process that can take either 2 or 3 steps. So, for the first step, the user reviews the user profile information that is made available by their authenticating identity provider. This includes the user's name, email, affiliation information, and the user will also need to agree to the EGI acceptable use policy. The second step, which can be optional depending on the email information that is released by the user's IdP, is the verification of the email address. So if the identity provider is able to release a verified email address, then there is no need to verify the email. Otherwise, there is a verification step involved before the user is actually able to access the resources, which is the last step of the registration process. Again, zooming into the registration process, so this kicks in when the first time that the user accesses a service protected by checkin. So checkin will check if the user has already if the user already has a checkin profile, and if not, then the user will be prompted to start the registration process. As I mentioned, in the user profile submission form, they will be able to review all the information that will be stored in checkin, and before submitting the form, they will need to review and accept the terms and conditions or the EGI acceptable use policy. Now, for the verification, as mentioned, if the IdP cannot release a verified email address, then the user will be sent an email containing a verification URL. The user will follow the link. They will go to a page confirmation page, and if they select accept, then the user will end up in the service that they were trying to access. Another improvement is in the identity linking process. So previously, in order for a user to link additional identities to their checkin profile, this involved again sending emails, logging out and logging in again, which was a process that was error prone and was found to be confusing by many of our users. So now with this new identity linking process, the user goes to the profile page, they click on link new identity, then they are presented with the discovery page of checkin, where they can select the additional identity provider that they want to link to their profile, and after the profile and after they authenticate with the additional identity provider, the user goes back to the profile page, where they see under the linked organizational identities panel that they now have a new identity available. For the RC-Auth certificate linking, now the new process can take up to 50% less time than the previous one. And as mentioned by Valeria, due to the SSO session of the user, all the authentication process to the master portal and RC-Auth is transparent, and at the end of the process, the user will have a certificate-based identity linked to their checkin profile. For the integration, even though there is support for ORCID for the last 2 or 3 years, now with the use of the member ORCID API credential, it's now possible for checkin and the EOS Portal AI, which also uses ORCID API credentials, to have access to read limited parts of the user's ORCID record. And that includes, for example, email, because with the previous integration, in order to for checkin or the EOS Portal AI, to obtain access to the user's email address would require the ORCID record holder to make their email address publicly available, while now it is sufficient to change the visibility of the email address to trusted third parties. And of course, still the user will need to authorize access to their email address, even with this new ORCID API credentials. For the service identity, so these are a special kind of identity. It's when an application needs to access resources rather than a person, for example, a portal that needs to run some job, create VMs. We still want a service identity to be associated to one or more real users because we want to have traceability. And a service identity contains all the attributes that are part of the personal identity with the additional attribute that denotes that this is a service identity and not a personal one. Of course, now the attribute that is being used can be considered temporary because we have still the process of standardizing the attribute that will convey the type of the identity, service or personal, is still something that's being discussed in the APINT Aegis architecture working group. And as any personal identity, a service identity can be associated with the VO, groups, or roles, so that can access resources based on the associated VO and group and role membership information. So more or less, the service identity is the analogous of the X509 robot certificates that people from in the great world are very much acquainted with. There are two different roles in relation to the service identity. So of course, there is one or more service identity owners who are responsible for managing the credentials, which can be either a login credentials pair or an X509 certificate. And they are also responsible, of course, for registering that service identity in the VO in which they want their service identity to be part of. On the other hand, we have the service identity manager who has the right to create such service identities, to associate real users to this service identity. So this service identity manager is the one that creates the association between the owners and the service identity, which is required for traceability, as already mentioned. And of course, this is the same role that can also remove a service identity. There are some slides that show the flow, so how one can register a service identity. I will not go into the details, but we'll be very happy to discuss the flow during the next AI-related session. So during the clinic session, we can revisit this part and provide more details about how service identities are managed in practice. The next update that I would like to share some details is the statistics plugin. Now there is a possibility to show statistics regarding the logins. This can be distributed per identity provider, per service provider. There is also the ability to show statistical information regarding the user registrations, the communities or virtual organizations that are managed in checkin. The login information can be broken down into different time periods. It is also possible to show distribution per identity and service provider. And there is also a nice way to export all this information in different formats, in comma-separated value format in Excel, specifying a time period, whether this information needs to be distributed on a daily, monthly, weekly basis. It is also possible to get more detailed information on the identity providers that are being used. Similarly, there is a view dedicated to service providers, and there's also a way to show information about the user registration during the lifetime of checkin. And regarding communities, apart from some general information regarding, for example, how many VOs were registered, when they were created, VO managers have privileged access to more detailed statistics. For example, they can see how many active users are part of in the review, how many users are in grace period, or how many users have been suspended. And now for this last part of this presentation, I would like to briefly go through some of the upcoming features. So you've already seen that there have been a lot of changes regarding the end user experience. So we will keep working on improving the end user experience. So we want to improve the overall identity lifecycle management. We want to improve some aspects of the VO group management operations. We want to introduce a new identity linking mode called Implicit mode. I have one slide that provides some more insight into this. We also want to support some of the upcoming identity provider hinting mechanisms that are being proposed by the ARC architectural working group. We also want to improve the integration process for SAML and OpenID Connect-based services by providing a uniform federation registry tool. And related to one question that there was in the chat earlier, we also have in our plans to use alternative technologies, and Keycloak is one of the main candidates for this. And as you can see, we're already started working on overcoming some of its existing limitations and shortcomings. And again, we also want to improve some aspects of the statistics, for example, by showing a geographically distributed view of the user logins, or allowing showing statistics, service usage statistics per VO. Now, regarding the identity lifecycle management, one of the main strengths of checkin is that it is able to integrate information from multiple different sources. So there is the registry, where the information about the user profile is maintained, and also some VO and group membership information. There is also Perun, an alternative tool for managing VOs, which is also integrated with checkin. There is also role information in the grid in the grid configuration database GovDB. There is also an SSH key management portal that allows users to get proxy certificates from RCORth from the command line. There is also integration with VOM, so checkin can read information from regarding users that are registered in VOMs, and soon it will also be able to provision VO and group membership information to VOMs. So with this activity, we want to improve the UI experience so that it's easier for the user from a central place, so from the registry, to be able to navigate to the different tools that manage the attributes that are necessary for gaining access to resources. So having one central place and navigating to Perun if the user's VO is in Perun, going to the GovDB if there are associated roles there, seeing what information is available in VOMs, and so forth. For the implicit identity linking that I mentioned here, the idea is that instead of expecting the user to explicitly go to the profile page and add new identity providers, the idea here is to trigger this identity linking process in a more automatic fashion. So if the user logs in with a new identity provider and some or a combination of attributes matches some attributes that are already registered in checkin, the user will be prompted to link their new identity with their existing one. Of course, for this to happen, the user will have to prove that they are the owner of the existing identity, which means that the user will have to re-authenticate with their existing identity provider. But in the end of the day, this implicit identity linking mechanism will prevent users from accidentally creating distinct identities in checkin. And for the federation registry, which is again something that we can discuss in the clinic session, so just one slide highlighting the main objectives, is we want to have a secure way of registering, reconfiguring, and deregistering the services or the identity providers that are federated with checkin or the EOS Portal AI. We want to provide a uniform interface regardless of the service protocol. So whether it is an OpenID Connect service or a SAML service, we want to have a uniform interface. And lastly, we want a federation registry tool that can support different AI product technologies. So we have SimSAML PHP and co-manage, but we would also like to have a tool that can support Satosa, Keycloak, and other AI technologies that are widely adopted. So I will skip through, I will skip these slides for the clinic session. And with this to share some updates regarding the move to new technologies. So as I mentioned, Keycloak is one of these technologies that is being considered, and one of the main shortcomings of the current Keycloak implementation is the lack of support for identity federations. So we're working on adding support. There is already a prototype that we have deployed, and we want to, and as you can see in this screenshot, this change required extending Keycloak the way that it handles the import of SAML metadata, which now needs to support metadata aggregates. These aggregates will need to be validated. There will have to be a way to also periodically refresh this information, because edugated metadata cannot be considered static. And as part of this change, by bringing 4,000 new authentication providers into Keycloak, we also had to extend the discovery page of Keycloak so that it can support searching and also supporting multiple languages, because the metadata in educate are usually in multiple supporting in multiple language tags. And this is an activity that is a joint activity between INFN and GRNET. And related to the federation feature, we have also started working on adding support for the upcoming OpenID Connect federation specification, which is currently in draft 12. And here the idea is to demonstrate that Keycloak can work with the existing proof of concept libraries that are compliant with the new federation specification. And this would solve the issue of registering OpenID Connect clients in a trusted way without having to go through a manual registration process. Again, the links to the documentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and sorry to my next speaker for taking some of his time.
Thanks a lot, Nicholas, and I apologize for the time, but so I asked to Marcus Hart from EOS Synergy project to start his presentation. Marcus?
Yes, I will. I'm trying to share my screen, but
yeah, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, now I am.
Okay, perfect.
Just you're there. I'll just speak much faster.
Can you see thanks a lot, Marcus.
Yeah. No, can you see my slides?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I was asked by Valeria to give some feedback from the perspective of EOS Synergy. So very briefly, I want to introduce the project. So it's one of these EOS 5B projects. We have many thematic services and some repository services. Our infrastructure is a mix of traditional and modern infrastructures, I would say. So we have EGI Federated Cloud, on top of which we use the infrastructure manager of UPV to establish virtual infrastructures like Kubernetes or Galaxy or Fidia, that stuff. But we also have traditional resources like HPC and grid computing. And we use EGI checkin to integrate all of these. So Mostly what we are using and what I want to use is only OpenID Connect. Of course, that works well for web portals, but also we need, we are using APIs for accessing REST interfaces with bearer tokens. And to support the grid, we need X509 certificates. And to support HPC, we need SSH. So there will be a bit more on this later. For authorization, we rely on the eduperson entitlement using the ARC G002 schema. We have one virtual organization per thematic services. That means we have 12 thematic services, but we only have 4 VOs at the moment. So we are collecting all these informations. And these VOs can use groups and roles. At the moment, we're only using the VM operator role and not much more. But in principle, this is something that we see and are happy that this is available. The integration. So EGI Federated Cloud, piece of cake. Because I mean, how else could you do it? UPV Infrastructure Manager was also very easy to integrate with EGI Checkin. Kubernetes on top of this whole thing was a bit more of an effort. It's doable. There is a component that was developed in the project or in the vicinity of the project called Kube Authorizer that relays the authorization using, strangely, but yes, ID tokens for this. Integration of the grid is a bit more delicate. You have to have a place that creates X509 certificates with WOMS extensions because people need WOMS for authorization. So we use the RC Auth Online CA with home identity provider login. Then we have the WATS portal, which implements a master portal, basically. Watson and the OIDC client agent to do all the authentication that's necessary to get the certificate. And it's just finished. We have worked hard, so we can actually give this in a demo. I'm not sure how appreciated this will be in the narrow time zone, but time constricted time range. So I basically want to go through this quite quickly. So this is a version of WATS where I've logged in. There we have a plugin called WOMS certificate for the Vorsica VO. So this was set up. When I request a certificate, okay, I have to first log in with EGI Checkin, which I should actually be. Yes, I had a session somewhere, so I'm logged in. Now I can request the certificate. This means I don't have it. I have to go to RC Auth. There I am already logged in. I come back and I get my certificate from RC Auth. Then, this is while it takes a while, we have a plugin running that connects to the WOMS server of the Vorsica VO. Tells them that I'm actually a member of that VO and sends my proxy of a certificate, asks the WOMS server to sign it, comes back and gives it to me. Because clicking isn't really a nice thing to do, there's a command line client that is much nicer, so it has to be configured. Then I just put a token inside with OIDC agent, and then I can run a simple command line. There you see the WOMS Vorsica thing. It pipes the output into my typical proxy file, and then I can.
Sorry, Marcus, but we can not able to see your slide, your browser.
So this is because I was sharing.
Yeah, only one presentation.
Only the browser. Yeah, it's strange. The other version of Zoom was allowing this. Okay. Anyways, there's a command line interface that has, I don't know, 2 lines of hacking, and you get your proxy. This is really a pity that it didn't work. Anyway, since we don't have so much time, the demo worked and it's really great and you can use it. For the integration of HPC, that's a bit of a different thing. So they need SSH logins, and that requires a local account. And we have a plan. So we want to enable SSH login and make it feel like just any other login. So we want to use authorization via the entitlements, groups, VO membership, roles, We want to use OpenID Connect as a basis. We do not want to modify the SSH client or SSH server. Keep our fingers from that. We want to dynamically create local accounts like pool accounts, very similar to what you know from the LCAS and LC maps, things that are probably still in production in the grid. And also remove the need for usernames. So the users just need to know, I want to log into the HPC, and then they can do it. This all sounds like voodoo magic. And the only good news that I really have is that we think it can be done. And we have an architecture. There will be a different session. Oh, we also have a proof of concept, and it has been done, but okay, this is still really in hot development. There is another session tomorrow, day after tomorrow, in the afternoon. So there should be some more details. There will be some more details, of course. And so the bad news is we don't really have anything that we can give you or demonstrate. It's really just the architecture that we can demonstrate and discuss and maybe shed some light of the security people on it. Feedback to EGI check-in. This was requested from Valeria also, from using it as I demonstrated. Organizational points I had were the VO creation process is quite complex. It helps, of course, to understand why it is so complex. But I think new communities, all our thematic services said, please, we do not want to create a VO because it's such a lot of, so much work. Can't we just do the VO inside group management of one VO? So we have a catch-all VO and do everything inside, which is wrong in many ways. And we decided against, knowing the process, I can help the people, but I think this is something that could be improved. There are these procedures of EGI, and that certainly help. Yeah, the service integration goes via the development system first, and then it, you cannot really self-manage your clients. Nicolas said that this will be changed in the next version, which is a great thing to hear. Overall, this feels a bit bureaucratic, and I think it might have technical reasons from the past. VO management performance was improved. We could feel that by moving the instance to the new server. Still, I would of course like it to be a lot faster. My opinion about QManage is, I sense out myself here. I don't like it. It's a bit, I mean, it works. In the end, it works. The documentation that EGI provides is excellent, and it helps you to do things that you, from clicking around the tool, wouldn't think you can. And that's a bit, yeah, not so nice. I mean, again, the EGI didn't write the software, it's just using the software, and it provides the documentation to help with it. Of course, it would be better if you don't need the documentation. But yeah, this is from our experience. And some very technical points we found. So I changed my membership in the VO, and it takes 5 to 10 minutes until these attributes are actually released. And it feels like, if you know it, it's okay, but the first few times you think, what, something is wrong, something is broken, doesn't work, and then all of a sudden it starts to work. So this is something we encountered a bit. Then there are older claims that exist in the information about the user. So there is this edu person and edu understrike person. They are not generally, I mean, it doesn't really hurt, but if you have a horde of people from a new project that want to develop with this, they take a list of claims that are available, and they just pick one. And there is no good reason for them to pick the right one. So they might choose edu understrike person, which is going to go away, or edu person without understrike, which is going to stay. So probably there are lots of organizational reasons that some people are still using the old claims, but I think for me, from my perspective, it would be nice to get rid of these as soon as possible, faster if possible. However, development support, I just thought, like, what would the situation be if we had a commercial product that we just paid for doing the service? I'm sure we wouldn't get anywhere close to the support that we have. Because here you can directly talk to the people that implement the system, and whatever happens, there will be competent people to support you. The processes are a bit of course, it takes time. So like creating my own group, I have to go to the ticket system and then somebody takes the ticket, and this takes, I don't know, hours to days instead of just minutes by creating my own group. Of course, I understand there is a new improved version being built that will take all this into account. Wish list. I have one strong thing on the wish list. I think it would be nice if the 18-person assurance could be, as a claim, could be transported and be expressed according to the reference assurance framework. So this is my example that I get from my home IDP. That would be really nice, because I think so it takes a long time for the services to pick this up and to understand how great this is. So giving it to them early is probably very good. Summarizing, there are lots of good points. Great OpenID Connect support, great documentation, excellent expertises. There is some feedback that's not, but that's quite personal. So as I said, I would like the schema to be a bit quicker, coming bigger. Performance, of course, probably I will never be happy, but there's one hard use case that people came to us that said, okay, if we hold a tutorial and we have 40 people that need to be added to the event at the start of the event, you do not want to spend half an hour with this. You want to do this in the first 5 minutes, and then 40 people need to be added. And at least with the last version, I think there was a performance constraint that this couldn't be met. Yeah, self-managed groups. Of course, the VO admins would like to manage in a very comfortable and easy way their own users. And yeah, the others I said, these are very technical points. I don't want to repeat them now.
Okay.
And the bottom line is, many thanks to EGI team for developing, running, maintaining, extending, and supporting on a very high level EGI check-in. And give me more features.
Thanks, Marcus, for your introduction presentation, and especially for your feedbacks. There is always time and way to improve, and that is why we create moments like those of the clinic session to receive them directly from your hands and experience. So thanks a lot. And now I invite you to join and to share the screen. Johan from Opera's P project.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Just give me a minute.
Hi Johan. And thanks to accept invitation to sharing your experience with check-in. You have more or less 10 minutes. So
yeah, I'll try to do it a bit quicker.
Thanks a lot, Johan.
Yeah, quickly, a few slides. Oh, it's going all along. Sorry. Couple of slides about Operas. So if there are two things to remember here, it's a distributed research infrastructure, and it's for the SSH domain. So that's the two main things that you have to remember here. Distributed because you will see that the services are being provided by different members. Therefore, it's important to remember. Here are the members. So there are there are 10 country members, and with over 50 partners all over Europe, with some other international partnership as well. So that was quite quick. Now, about the services Operas is running, there are 5 core services that are all at different stages at the moment. I won't go into much details what they do or what they are. However, the information can be found on the website. But, and they also can be found also on the EOS marketplace for a couple of those services. We currently have one which is fully operational, so in production, which is called the Research for Society service. It's available on the EOS marketplace, as I said, and it's being provided by Open Edition, so one of the core members of Operas. We also have 2 services in beta, which we are planning to open up in production probably before the end of 2021. Those are the metrics service and the certification service based on DOIB. Metrics, quickly, it's being operated by a consortium, which is currently includes Open Book Publishers, Ubiquity Press, and Cohort, all members of the Operas, of course. And the certification is based on the Directory of Open Access Books, which is run by the foundation of the same name. so the GOIP Foundation. And finally, we have two other services currently in development as a publication service portal, also called Pathfinder, and the discovery service, which is called GoTriple. Here you can see that the Opera services are also at a very different level of integration with EGI checkin. There was a Pathfinder, the first one, publication service portal, which is in development, has already been integrated with EGI checkin development version for test, fine-tuning, and will be passed in production when it's ready. Then there are also the services that are being prepared to be integrated with checkin. So those are the certification and the discovery services. And finally, there are also two other services that we are still investigating possibilities to integrate them with EGI checkin. Not for the same reasons, one for technical reasons and one for more like management reasons. So I will describe it quickly right after. I try to go a bit quicker, sorry. So as a distributed infrastructure, we needed a nested structure for our virtual organization. So instead of creating different virtual organizations for different services, we decided to have one virtual organization for the whole of Opera's community and with nested components of different services. So basically a manager at the very top level of Opera's can be a manager of every service within it. Of course, here there are just two services as examples, but it can be used for all services. Then, of course, at the next level, you will finally find the different roles. So what we called earlier the entitlements that are used for the nested structure. So, but of course, as you know, one new role or one new service means a new entitlement that has to be passed from checkin to the services. So now I can go via quickly each of the services. So the first one, the publication service portal, already integrated, only at the dev level, like I said, until it's provided and released publicly. It actually acted more as a proof of concept for us, so to see possibilities and to start engaging between our services and EGI on the AI level. We integrated it with OpenID Connect, so while using a PHP library that was already available. So it was, for us, basically simply a matter of configuration and adjustments for the code to, of course, understand the entitlements received. Yeah, of course, production level AI, so the production checkin will be used when this is released. A second service is a certification service, which is based on GOIP. So it's currently being redesigned within the OperaSP project, where we are collaborating with EGI as well. And this is where we will start integration with checkin. So this work is scheduled to happen between now and February, so quite soon. So there will be a full integration of checkin in GOIP by early 2021. However, a big difference with the first service is that for this one, we are kind of forced to use a SAML2 protocol. A simple reason for that is this DSpace, so the repository solution that was chosen for this service, already includes a plugin for Shibboleth. So it made it easier for us to make this integration with SAML. However, because it doesn't exist yet, the OpenID Connect, I mean, probably something to do in the future, either at DSpace level or somewhere else in the community, but to create a plugin for this OpenID Connect. Then the third one is a discovery service, also called GoTriple. So it's being developed right now in another project, the Triple project, and will be released in production 2023. So that's still quite a way out. However, integration with checkin is already being started. Specifically, this service has it's one service that includes also many different sub-services. So they're called innovative service in the project. So, and they will or will not, it depends on the choice made by the providers, of course, also include integration with checkin. And this integration will very likely also be using OpenID Connect and will be again nested for the different use of those innovative services integration. If you are interested into more details on this, there will be a specific talk on Wednesday. So today is at 3:30. I forgot the name of the session, but it's the AI one.
Thanks a lot, Johan. It is your last metrics service, but I have to stop here because we have so accumulated so
Right.
late, and
Okay.
I don't want to skip your to be the cause to skip your lunch. So thanks a lot, and we will follow your presentation during Wednesday, where you can describe in more details the service of Operas. Thanks a lot.
It's a triple one, yeah.
It's
Okay.
triple, sorry, triples. Okay. And I invite now Carl Frederick from ASCAT Research Community to share his screen and presentation and experience. Carl, can you hear me? Carl from ASCAT. Carl, are you able to write?
It seems that he's not muted from the participants list, but I can't hear him. I know, Carl, we can't hear you.
Carl, we cannot hear you. Okay, Carlo, if you can, are you able to write? Okay, try. And yes, Nicholas.
But I was also going to suggest to reconnect, because this might fix his audio issues.
Yeah. Okay, otherwise we can suggest to move his presentation to the clinic session in order to have more time for his presentation.
Yes, if Carl Frederick is available, to make sense to have the presentation in the clinic session.
In the clinic session, yeah. Carl. Can you write something in the chat, Carl? No. Okay, let me chat. Come back. No, I cannot hear you. Okay, let me to break this session here so we can have our lunch break, and I can chat with the Carl and organize them his presentation during the clinic session. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because Carlos, we haven't the time and the possibility to check these technical problems. So let me close here the session and move on to the clinic session, your presentation, so the audience can follow your experience there in the other session that I provide to you here in the chat. Thanks a lot for joining, and have a good lunch. See you to clinic session at more or less 3/4 of water. Thanks a lot.